Sarah Spain, and I'm a former New York City English public high school teacher, a former college instructor, an education activist, and a parent leader. I'm currently the president of the Parent Association at Soundview Academy for Culture and Scholarship, the president of the District 8 Community Education Council, and the president of the New York City Coalition for Educating Families Together. Before anything, though, I am a mother. In the early years of my children's education, Emden and Ryland struggled with the education they received. Not because they were unable to keep up with the work, but because they were not being challenged enough. My children were made fun of, they were bullied for appearing to be too smart, and were accused of acting white. Emden pretended to be dumb to try to fit in. He tried to buy off his peers to stop the bullying and spent time aggressively defending himself. Thank God for karate and the grandmaster. Ryland, knowing how hard it was for his older brother to fit in, used humor to deflect from the criticism and the bullying by being a class clown, or sometimes he would just fall asleep because he was bored with the education that he was receiving. They wanted to be challenged, but our Bronx neighborhood school did not provide rigorous coursework. What was a parent like me to do? I nurtured my children's academic and intellectual appetite at home as much as I could with high-level readings and discussions, but it seemed like they needed more from school. I thought of enrolling my children in private school where they were sure to be challenged and prepared enough for life and academic opportunities after high school. But in the end, I chose to fight for a better public school system. Even as I made that decision, I worried about their emotional well-being because the negative emotional consequences of not paying attention to the academic needs and the academic environment of children can last a lifetime. Unfortunately, my children's stories are a representation of hundreds of children's stories across New York State. It's stories of children who are not challenged enough and whose futures are being sealed before they are old enough to make real choices and real decisions. An analysis by the New York Equity Coalition found that students who are from low-income backgrounds and Black and Latinx students are more likely than their white peers to attend schools where important gatekeeper and advanced courses are not offered. Even in schools that offer gatekeeper college and career prep courses, students who are from low-income backgrounds and Black and Latinx students are under-enrolled in these courses. To help paint a picture of this, let me share some stats. The coalition's analysis found that while 17% of all New York State 7th and 8th grade students are enrolled in Algebra 1, just 14% of students from low-income backgrounds are enrolled in those classes. I repeat, just 14%. On the other hand, 22% of students from not low-income backgrounds are enrolled. In high school, Black students and Latinx students represent 32% and 25% of the share of students in schools without calculus, while white students represent just 10% of the share of students in schools that don't offer calculus. This data should make you upset and outraged. It sure makes me angry as a parent and as an educator. And I know that I'm not the only one. In fact, in the September 2021 New York Equity Coalition poll, 91% of parents reported that it is important that schools improve access to advanced courses in middle and high schools. The benefits of advanced coursework are very clear. Taking rigorous coursework in middle school and high school prepares students for college. In a 2018 National Association for College Admission Counseling survey, it was discovered that the top two deciding factors for college admissions were overall grade point average and grades in college prep courses. Plus, at a time when former college students are calling for a loan forgiveness, it is so important that we find opportunities to decrease the expenses of college. Students who take advanced coursework are less likely to need college remedial courses. And they also have opportunities to earn college credit, saving them an obscene amount of money. Listen, I can go on and on and on about the research and the data, but I also think it is very important to elevate the lived experiences of students, counselors, teachers, and parents. This is why I am so excited that we are joined by a dynamic group of advocates to engage in a multi-generational conversation about course access. So before turning it to Gabby to kick us off, I want to encourage everyone to bookmark the New York Equity Coalition's analysis in the chat with the data. Now, let's tune into the panel. Gabby, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Farah. Hello, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Mosier, and I will be moderating this panel. Professionally, I'm a high school math teacher and education specialist, but my most important job is that of a parent. I am also a parent leader of the Education Trust Parent Lab. As an educator, I'm especially excited about this conversation because of the diversity of voice, including geographic diversity, age, and the diversity title in general. This is going to be a truly dynamic panel discussion this evening. So before I go any further, I would like to introduce our panelists. First, I would like to introduce a student of my very own, Dominique Taliaferro, who attends school in Buffalo. I'm also excited to introduce Miriam Feknous, a rising sophomore at the University of Rochester. We also have Melody Baker, a parent advocate and the National Policy Director of Just Equations, who has done extensive work to help advance school course access, and a school counselor, Dr. Marie Gaviton Swift, a school counselor from Yonkers. So for this evening's panel discussion, audience members, we encourage you to use the chat to share your thoughts and ideas. And students, let's just get this conversation started with you. So to our students on the panel today, what is your experience with course access? And do you feel like you have had, or do you have access to rigorous coursework as a high school student? Please go ahead, Dominique.
My high school experience is a little confusing because once I reached 7th grade, me and my family, we moved down to Georgia. So I feel like if I wasn't exposed to rigorous coursework while I lived in Georgia, my high school career would be much different and I would be further behind than what I am right now. In Georgia, they required us to take Algebra 1 and I believe physical science as 8th graders. And we were required to have an 85 or higher to not need that class in high school anymore. So when I moved back to Buffalo in the middle of 8th grade year, they just automatically put me in Algebra 1. And that has pushed me forward to be taking pre-calculus in my junior year next year. So I feel like if I didn't move to Georgia, I would just, be back in Algebra 2 like a regular sophomore and not have taken geometry yet. So I hate that I had to move out of town in order to be more ahead than what I am now. I feel like schools in Buffalo do need to offer more stuff to 8th graders. I know some schools do, but it's mainly like the gifted students. I feel like they should give everybody an equal and fair try at Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and maybe we will produce more well-off people and put them into college with more credits that they need.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective, Dominique. I would also like to ask the same of Miriam. What is your experience with course access, and do you feel you have or have had access to rigorous coursework as a high school student?
I feel like my story is similar to Dominique, where I went to high school at Inwood Academy, and it was a local high school, and I didn't get the resources that I needed to be able to succeed. So I moved downtown all the way to 23rd Street, and it took me like 2 hours to even get to that school. And it was a public school, whereas Inwood was like a charter school, but it didn't even support me with the resources that I needed. So while I moved to the school downtown, I had the resources like College Now, where I took college credit courses. I could talk about that. It was a dual enrollment program where I even took 5 courses there at Baruch College. And there's so many benefits from me taking those different classes. So yeah, I would say that.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for sharing. So I want us to get the data. This past November, the New York Equity Coalition conducted an analysis of students' access to rigorous coursework. And the analysis found that students who are from low-income backgrounds and Black and Latinx students are more likely than their white peers to attend schools where important gatekeeper and advanced courses aren't even offered. For example, while Black students and Latinx students represent 32% and 25% of the share of students in schools without calculus, respectively, on the other hand, white students represent just 10% of the share of students in the schools that don't offer this same course. So Miriam and Dominique, I want to ask you again, what do you think are some of the short-term and maybe even long-term effects of the lack of advanced coursework, and how that will affect some of your peers, if you can please share that?
Like Farah was saying, I believe, like when we get our credits and stuff in high school, like once we finish our high school credits, we'll be able to move on to getting our college credits and doing dual enrollment. But I believe if we're like still setting these kids further behind, that they won't get the credits that they need, they don't get a jump start at college per se. So I feel as though like we do need that type of stuff to knock their credits out for college out right away. And like Farah said, that does reduce the amount of debt they're put in and the amount of debt that they have to reduce once they get older. Because debt is a really big, like school debt is a really big thing in the Black and Latinx community. And it's like really hard to pay that off once you get older. So I do believe once we start getting access to those credits and knocking them out the way, we will be in less debt and we will start building generational wealth.
Thank you.
To add on, oh, sorry. To add on to Dominique, like the short-term effects of having these advanced courses, I would say during high school, it gave me a lot of skills like communication skills. It helped me in writing so many times. I was able to have like essays that I could bring to like Baruch College and they would look over it, like so many things like that. And even long term, University of Rochester gave me a scholarship to even take more college credits there. And I believe it was because I put all those courses that I've taken in high school on like my resume. So that's how I would say it helps long term and short term. And without those classes that I took in high school, I don't know where I would be, you know? I wouldn't have those skills.
Thank you so much, Miriam. I would like to ask Dr. Gaviton Swift and Melody, I would like to know, why do you think these inequities currently exist?
So one of the biggest issues that I think that our students face, our Black and brown students face, is the idea is it's not cool to take some of these courses. So as a school counselor, sometimes I face that where I would suggest a student take an advanced placement class or take a SUPTA class, that's the Syracuse University College course. In my school district in Mount Vernon, we have a group of students who are part of the Smart Scholars Program, which is a dual enrollment credit program. You'll tell the students, but it's not cool to actually do those things. So I think, we have to enlist parents to tell parents this information. Also, the biggest issue, simple putting the information out there. I don't think parents know that schools do provide those things. Also, our students, I don't think, realize the gift they're given when they take the PSAT. Those are the things that set them up to take the advanced placement class. When a student take PSAT, 8, it tells them which type of courses that they are able to take. So knowledge is power. We need to empower our parents so they are able to advocate for students who take these courses. And counselors and adults in the school should tell the kids about these courses.
Those are great questions. Those are great answers. It's hard to come after you, Dr. Gabatone, with the knowledge that you just brought. But I could not agree with you more. I think that a lot of it has to do with awareness. So to your question, Gabby, in terms of why do you think these equities exist? It's for many different reasons. It's historic. It's historical. It's teacher expectations. We all know Rosenthal, 1961, did the experiment where he had equally performing students, and the students who had the higher expectations, they were put in the more challenging coursework, and they did better and they rose to the occasion. So at the end of the day, it's based on perceptions. It's based on implicit bias, unfortunately. It's based on not having enough resources. So then having to rank and sort kids as opposed to cultivating and developing them. One of the challenges with the current pathway as it is, you have to skip the 8th grade in order for you to reach calculus. So like what Dominique said, she took she took Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, which meant that she skipped 8th grade math so that she could then take geometry, then Algebra 2, then pre-calculus, then calculus, and that would be the end of that algebra sequence. The inequity exists because the teachers really put in a position in the 8th grade, in the 7th grade, to use extremely limited information. How long has she spent with you? The last 6-7 months to determine whether or not you're suitable for this advanced level class. And there's not enough teachers. There's not enough seats in the classroom. COVID doesn't make it any better. As a matter of fact, I'll put a message in the chat, or I'll put a story that I wrote in the daily in the chat of my own personal experience. But at the end of the day, implicit bias is a well-oiled machine, and we are a part of a system that has been doing inequity longer than we've been around. So even in your best circumstances, underserved populations are more likely to get out. So I know that was a lot in terms of why these inequities exist. So I will stop there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that insight from both of you. So for my next question, this question is actually going to go to all of our panelists. So for all of our panelists, why do you think it's important that students are able to have access to more rigorous coursework and to take these advanced courses? So we'll start with Dominique, please.
Can you please repeat the question for me?
Yes, absolutely. Why do you feel like it is important to take advanced coursework?
Like I had previous stated about how it'll get you more like set for life, like you'll be on the right track into your career or whatever career path you choose. And like Farah said and I said, it'll cancel out the debt you'll have in the future. Well, for me, like I want to go down into the nursing path, and health sciences, they're partnered up with ChurchCare, and they're putting me into ChurchCare next year, just as a junior, which I'm like really thankful for. So that'll just put me right on the track to applying to nursing school and just basically getting the feel of college before I'm even there. Because I do want to go out of state for college, but ChurchCare will give me a sense of college in Buffalo. So I do feel like that'll make me experience things that most people my age don't get to experience.
I'll go next. Oh, unless someone else is going, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I was just saying thank you. Melody?
All right, so I'll go next. So I think it's important for students to take advanced coursework for a variety of reasons. However, just from a policy standpoint, a policy perception point of view, at the admission, at the post-secondary level in college, there is a narrative. There's this hierarchy associated with the courses that students take, and unfortunately, some courses are considered better than others. And if you don't have those particular courses on your college transcripts, it is a really good chance, if you're applying to like a STEM program, or if you're to a selective college, it is a good chance that those admissions counselors, if they are not aware, and a lot of them might not be familiar that, there are a lot of really high quality learning experiences out there, especially in terms of math, they will weight your application based on the courses that you take. So the thing about it is, one of the things that just really bothers me the most with this whole thing is that most of this happens, not most of it, tracking occurs in middle school, right? So in order for you to be looked at as a student that can compete with the rest of the students, by the time you're in the 7th grade, someone has to say, okay, this student needs to be on that college preparatory track. In the event you decide that you want to go a different pathway, or you're interested in other things, and then you change your mind your sophomore or your junior year of high school, there are so fewer opportunities that are available to you. So just in terms of not even understanding what you're going to do, or what school you want to attend, getting access to the advanced courses is not just about exposure to high quality learning, which is incredibly important. It's really about your trajectory. And we talk a lot about this choice narrative and how, students have the right to choose, but at the end of the day, if you're 10 years old, 11 years old, and how many college students switch their majors? If you don't know what it is that you want to do, believe me, somebody will put you on a particular track, and it's not going to be the advanced learning one.
So for me, it does something simple. It levels the playing field for our students of color. That's what it does. It puts them in the even level playing field as their white counterparts who go to affluent school district. More than that, it equips them with the vocabulary, it equips them with the culture that they are going to face in college. So many of our students who do not have this do not do well their first year as college student. They struggle, right? They do not understand the dichotomy of being a college student. They don't have the rigor that you get from taking an advanced placement class, right? Reading the research that it takes. It changes your entire narrative, your entire trajectory as a student. I know personally for me, my son, when we started college, and I use the word we because it's an accomplishment, he started as a second semester freshman, just from his AP courses alone, right? And as a parent, that is a $30,000 course that you saved that you didn't have to pay because your child took those advanced courses. Like one of the young ladies said, it sets you for a path that no one can take away from you. It is something that I think every single student should have the opportunity to do. And it should start at middle school. Middle schoolers should start taking those advanced courses. For example, I'm a big advocate of the capstone program that they have in middle school that prepares students to take AP classes in middle school, having every student, not just honor student, taking Algebra 1 and living environment in middle school. So your child graduated with 2 high school credit from middle school, setting them on the path to get that advanced Regents, to take the advanced placement class. It is a game changer. And simply put, it makes our student able to compete.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to ask Ms. Melody Baker and Dr. Gabaton Swift, what can a parent do if their child is denied access to one of these advanced courses?
So one of the most important things to do is understand what the policies are. And it varies from district to district. Depending on what district you're in, you can't be denied a course. You pay taxes, so you should have access to that course as long as there is adequate space. The first thing that you should definitely do is find out, if there are requirements. A lot of schools, a lot of programs will require you to have like an 85 average and a teacher recommendation. However, that doesn't always happen. That's not always the case. When we look at advanced placement, it's usually based on three things. Number one, parent advocacy. And let me tell you, that is a big piece of the puzzle. Number two, prior achievement. So they'll look at your kids' past scores. And then number three, it's going to be on essentially like behavior and teacher recommendation. However, like I said, if you, depending on what district you live in, you cannot be denied courses. It's this culture of denial. And when a teacher says your student needs to have an 85 in their previous class or whatever their requirements are, you need to push back and say, I pay taxes. You cannot deny my child access to high quality education. But I would also definitely ask them to break down the demographics in the school and ask them, what does the demographics look like? Are underserved students being offered these courses? And if not, why not? So, I mean, there's definitely more than one way to skin a cat.
So my take is different. Every school district should have a school counselor. Parents should get to know their children's school counselor because that is the person that's going to advocate for your child to take those advanced placement class, even if the teacher did not give them the letter of recommendation. I've had students who've had 85, 90 average, and the teacher, maybe for any reason, did not recommend them. As the counselor, I could go to my administrator and say, you know what, Marie has a 90 in that, in the geometry course. Marie should take AP, pre-calculus, or Marie should take, AP calculus. So I would really suggest to parent, tap the best resource you have in your school, the school counselor. That person knows your child's grade. That person knows your child's ability. That person knows the policy. And that person has a direct contact to the administrators who could make it happen.
Thank you both for that insight. And going back to the students, for our young scholars, I would like to know, what are some recommendations that you have for teachers to help ensure that other students, such as your peers, have access to more rigorous coursework? And what would you say to your peers about advocating for themselves to be placed in more higher level coursework?
I believe Dr. G, she mentioned this pretty earlier, and it was just how kids nowadays, they find like taking more rigorous coursework as like nerdy, and they don't like it, and it's just a whole stigma around it. Like, you shouldn't be called a nerd or something for just simply caring about what path you're going to go on. So I do believe school counselors and maybe the school in general should enforce the idea that taking rigorous coursework is okay. You're not a nerd for it. You're just setting yourself up for life, and that's just something that that needs to be destigmatized. And also, with sorry, I just completely lost my train of thought.
It's okay. The second part to that was, what would you say to your friends about advocating for themselves to be placed in these higher level courses?
Oh, okay. I also feel like some of my friends don't really apply it themselves. Like, sometimes they think it's cool to not, apply themselves to their work and stuff like that. I just want to make it known that it's okay to care about your future. It's okay to want to be better at something. Just like most of the time they be like that when they doubt themselves. Like, you're smarter than you think. I know you can go up to these higher classes. I know you can do it if you just push yourself a little. And I do feel like the teachers should nudge the students a little bit more, because the students are getting a little bit too comfortable in that lower spot. So yeah, thank you.
Miriam, Same thing to you. What are some recommendations you have for teachers to help ensure that students have access to this rigorous coursework? And what would you say to your peers about advocating for themselves academically?
In my experience, I actually had, like I was talking about earlier with the College Now, it's based in New York City. So I believe the teachers had a peer leader come to the classroom and actually talk to us about different courses we can take that we're able to take. If we just sign up for online, you just sign up for it. And I believe I did like an essay, and they just require you to put in like your GPA. So I think them coming to our classroom and actually talking to us about it really helped everyone like even try to apply to these courses. And I did have some friends that had a lot on their plate already with high school, and it was challenging doing high school and apart from that going to a whole college campus to take these courses. So I would say to like my friends from back in high school, I would say just think about your future because it really does benefit you. Um, I don't know what else to say, but I would encourage it because it really did help me in my future.
No problem. Thank you so much, Miriam and Dominique, for sharing on that thought as well. And this next question, I would like it to be for our entire panel. What are some policy ideas that you have for our educational leaders? And how can they right this inequity? So I'll repeat that one more time. It's a little heavy. What are some policy ideas that you have for our education leaders? And how can they right this inequity?
A couple of recommendations. Number one, definitely pass New York Senate 1111, which is about expanding opportunities to, which is what we're here basically to talk about today, increasing awareness about advanced level courses. And number two, automatic enrollment. Like you said in the report, even when students were performing, when they were proficient, they are, if Black Latinx students were less likely to be placed into these advanced courses. So I think that there does need to be an automatic, a lever like automatic enrollment. Number two, the other thing is multiple math courses. And that's something relatively new. It is not huge in the Northeast. However, it is really big across the country. The US is ranked 36th in quote unquote developed worlds. And I say that very carefully because it's such an inappropriate thing anyways. We're ranked 36th in mathematics. And we consider ourselves pretty technologically advanced. A lot of that has to do with what type of math we're exposed to. Students need to be exposed to more quantitative reasoning courses. And a way to address this is by offering diverse versions of math. If there's only one type of math that everybody think is the dominant math, like calculus, everybody's gonna want that math track. 10 years from now, everybody's going to need to be just as reading literate as they are data literate. We need to infuse data literacy, computer literacy, statistics, all these other types of math that are more appropriate for 21st century learning. Calculus, there's nothing wrong with it, especially if you're going to be a physicist or if you're going into engineering. However, for an advanced 21st century society, we need other math. So my recommendation is multiple math pathways, exposure to advanced modern math, and not just calculus as an alternate pathway. That's going to open up more seats, and it's going to give more students exposure to not just advanced level math, but also 21st century level math. It's going to give them great jobs, great exposure, and it's actually pretty interesting. And then the last thing is definitely going to be professional development as it relates to teacher bias. A lot of teachers, they love students and they'll say, I'm not biased. How do I see myself as biased? And they don't understand that we're all biased in some way. So professional development, definitely policy changes in terms of offering multiple math pathways. And I said something else, but I forgot.
In terms of policy changes, I concur with Ms. Baker. We do need to offer implicit bias courses across the board for all teachers, all staff, anyone who actually interact with children, because we do have biases. It's a misnomer that people do not, they do. It impacts choices that our children are able to make as a result. So that would be a big policy. So one thing I was very happy with the current budget is that there is money being given for teacher bias training. And I think as communities should tap into that, school districts, community organizations should tap up to that fund in order to have that movement. The second policy change I would make is, the idea that in middle school, our students should be taking PSAT exam. They should be taking prep courses. They should be made to understand that, a college prep path is your key to your future. And I don't think we do that enough. We speak about, college and career readiness, 21st century skills, but are we really doing those things in our school? So I think policy need to change, and the money needs to be put where our words are, where, put your money where your mouth is, that whole idea. So those are the two things I really would concentrate on. Getting it to be a community-based idea, because I think for our students of color, if it's just the school pushing it, it's not going to work. If families are pushing it, if the community centers are pushing it, I think that's the way to go to make this change and this shift to happen.
Thank you so much. Does either of our scholars on the panel have any ideas for policies any policies, or how can our districts right this inequity?
Can I kind of go off of something Dr. G said? So it's about the whole PSAT and college readiness. So I know at health sciences this year, they are starting the PSAT as early as 9th grade, but I also feel like we should also have some other type of college readiness. Most of them 9th graders nowadays, they don't take the PSAT that seriously. It was just like another standardized test that school gave us. And it was there for one day, over and done with, and they just completely forgot about it after that. So I do feel like there should be other things other than the PSAT, because we take once, we forget, take it again next year, we forget. It's just not something that's being, constantly drilled into our brains. Like, they don't understand the weight of our PSAT or our SATs in general when we take it our senior year. So I do feel like schools do need to enforce like the how serious the PSATs are and how they are trying to set you up for your college career.
That is that's a really interesting take on the PSATs and the SAT prep. So from an equity standpoint and from another perspective, that some of the challenges with the PSAT and the SAT is, of course, the narratives is associated with bias and all of that other great stuff. But one of the biggest challenges with the PSAT and the SAT being used as a measure of ability, it is so narrow. How could you possibly spend 2 hours essentially measuring, the robustness of a learning experience for an entire student's life? I think that there's so much more to high quality and great college students than what could be seen on a PSAT or SAT. So in terms of policy, I'm really more about multiple measures. So instead of just looking at a PSAT, what other skills do a student have? Do they have to bring them to the table? I'll give you a quick example. They did a study with a SUNY school in New York City, and they took the students who did not meet the threshold. They were right before the cutoff where they would allow these students into their program for college. And what they asked for is they're like, these students didn't make the cut. Let me talk to their teachers. So they asked for teacher recommendations. They asked for prior test scores. They asked the student to do a project and then also to do a presentation. Those things alone gave a much better picture of the capability that a student could do than any exam. So I do push back on the exams because, they have been known to demonstrate a tremendous amount of bias, especially when under-resourced schools are not going to have PSAT courses in middle school or high school, you know, is creating another divider line. I would like to see really looking more at the big picture of a student, looking at what they can contribute entirely as opposed to a PSAT or what can be captured in a test. One other thing, I also think that they need to relook at the curriculum. Georgia is throwing out like 30% of their calculus material because it's so dated. We have gotten so hung up on students getting the right answer that we haven't asked them to get the relevant answer. We need to align the courses that we're offering our students better with their jobs. And if we did that, it would be more modern. It would be way more relevant, more interesting to them. So look at the curriculum. That's something we started to do. It's something we started to do after COVID, once COVID hit and a lot of students was not having access to, you know, one-on-one type of an experience with a teacher or just being in a classroom, you know, everyone said, oh, we got to remediate these kids. These kids need to be retained. We're going to have to, you know, give them all this information all over again. No, you don't have to do that. What you need to do is look at the information that we're teaching the students and find out, okay, it's 2022. What do these students need to do to be prepared for 22nd century learning? When they're looking at engineering, a lot of the stuff that's being taught in engineering, we've advanced so much now as a society, none of that is even relevant, which leads me to believe, are we building in artificial complexity just to add additional hoops for students? I mean, at the end of the day, we are an advanced society. I think that we can do a much better job at not just teaching our students, but really looking at the material and trying to figure out what is relevant as opposed to what is just right.
So let me ask this question then. So how do we help our teachers become more, you know, out of the box thinking? Because remember, teachers are told that this is the curriculum, you have to do this, there's an evaluation attached. So how do we as people of color help our teachers to think out of the box so they could use more performance types assessment to really judge where our students are? So if you take our students today, they are brilliant on TikTok, they are brilliant on social media, right? They are such creative. How do we bring those ideas into the classroom as a community so we can use those for our students to take more advanced classes? You know, the idea of artificial intelligence, the way that it's designed, I think that's how our school should be, right? It should be that whole idea that, you know, I'm not stuck to just doing algebra or calculus, but I am more going to do what feels natural to me, what my intelligence. Like for myself, I'm not a math person. That's not my forte. However, you give me a book, you give me something to write, you give me something to analyze. It's almost as if you just say it's my birthday every single day. But the moment you say, oh, sit down and do some geometry, I'm upset and I'm unhappy. So I think we need to, there has to be a shift, right? And we have the tools in the school. You have people like counselors who could advocate for your student, who teach students to advocate. So one of the things we should also do is, you know what, let's stop wasting money on other things. Let's get more advocate, people who could help our students move their trajectory forward. Let's get more counselors in our school, right? Let's get our students to become self-confident. Let's get our students to rely on the fact that, wait, I'm smart and that's fine, right? It's great to be smart because I'm doing me. We need people to do that more in the schools, and we have the resources, we're just not using them, right? Let's all just think outside the box.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Just a virtual round of applause for everyone that has been participating on our panel this evening. As you can see, each of the individuals on our panel were able to emphasize the importance of having access to more rigorous coursework. We discussed the importance of passing the legislation to have more advanced coursework in public schools. We talked about the lack of access, the importance and the benefits of dual enrollment courses, and how overall it can help reduce the academic debt, increasing expectations, but bridging that gap. So As you continue to learn how to advocate for your children, for your students, and encourage them to be advocates for themselves. Thank you everyone for just joining this panel discussion. And I would like to pass it to Farah at this time so she could give you more information on how you can advocate for your child and for your students in that way. Farah? Up, you're muted.
Thank you so much, Gabby. Count on Farah to be muted. So I know there was a lot of information tonight, but please take the time to reflect on the panel discussion and on what you can do to help solve this problem. We have heard that thousands of students are under-enrolled in advanced coursework that prepares them for college and careers. I know New York State can do better, and there is currently a state bill that can help ensure that we do. Senator John Liu and Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes introduced a cost access bill that would expand access to rigorous coursework across New York State by requiring school districts to share information with families about the courses available that prepare their children for college. I encourage you to take action by urging your representatives to sign on to Senate Bill S1111A and New York State Assembly Bill A4407A to expand access to advanced courses to improve educational equity. So please, let's take 30 seconds right now to complete the action form that Miranda just dropped in the chat. It will ask you for your address to track down your elected official. I will pause for about 60 seconds while you complete this form. Okay, so my math is bad. I don't know if that was 60 seconds or not, but I hope that everyone completed the action form. And I know we can, and I know that if we didn't complete it, you really should take some time to complete it now because we need you to complete the action form so that we can get the children the course access classes that they need to become successful. Should I give us more time to complete the form? All right, I can hear us completing the form. Okay, all right, so. Well, if you have completed the form, our evening on course access has come to an end. I'm sorry to see us go, but the work is just beginning. So please share everything you have learned tonight with everyone you know, and encourage everyone you know to take action like you took tonight. It's going to take all of us taking action together to give our children the education they need and deserve. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Spread the word and please stay safe and healthy and enjoy your weekend. Bye.